Wow, it's pouring down everywhere in Lagos at the moment. I don't know if you're outside of Lagos, I don't know what the weather condition is, but Lagos right now, if not for the promise in the Bible that the world will not be submerged with flood anymore, because the way it's pouring down. Welcome everyone to the shows, The Buzz, your social media program on television. I mean, it is, I'm really mortified this afternoon to have these great men. You know, despite the rains, they all came through for me. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. Because I know it's a struggle in Lagos.
Yeah. It is. Seeing your face alone is enough for us to clap and for
wow.
It takes away the pain of Ruga.
Yeah. No, you see, the point is this. Like I told you, like,
you forget that these men are Igbo men.
Yeah.
They always go.
I got so you look eatable today.
Wow.
Mazi.
I don't know about that.
I didn't expect that coming from you, but it's okay. Welcome to the program. It's Tuesday, it's the 16th of July, 2019. My name is Patience, as you all know, your regular host on the show, and you already know who my panelists are this afternoon. But to introduce properly, I have Prince Francis Chilaka, who is the executive director for Kuth Foundation, an NGO that works with children and also protects the rights of women. He's also a social and political analyst. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Also joining us at the table, my dear friend, great Imo Jonathan himself is here. He is a media consultant, he's a human and business development consultant, a social and policy analyst as well. Good afternoon, great.
Afternoon, Pat, and good afternoon to our viewers.
Always great to have you here. And of course, Mazi Chinedu Obiora is here again. Always a pleasure to have him here. I mean, he's like the elder at the table. It's good to always bring that mature perspective, you know, into things. He's also a social and policy analyst, amongst other things. Good afternoon, Mazi.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam. It's my pleasure being here. Thank you for bringing me.
You look good.
Thank you.
All right. All right, viewers, I welcome you warmly. 0802-836-8971. That's the number to use to interact with us on the program this afternoon. Before we go into our discuss, let's quickly take a look at what we'll be discussing on The Buzz this afternoon. Welcome back to the program. We'll start by way of trending news before we go into our major stories for the day. The Trade Union Congress says it will issue an ultimatum to the President Muhammadu Buhari's government to implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage or be faced with another strike action. The TUC President Quadri Olaleye said the implementation of the new minimum wage of 30,000 naira should have been done a long time ago, since President Buhari signed it in April, but the government seems to be dragging its feet over the matter needlessly. With the way things are, it seems the government is not interested in its implementation. He went further to say, and I quote, "We're going to issue an ultimatum to the federal government soon. We want the negotiation to resume before going ahead. However, if there is no solution to the problem of implementation in the next 2 weeks, we will issue the ultimatum. We have started mobilizing our members already. We reject the government's proposal of 9.5% salary raise for employees on grade levels 07 to 14 and 5% for those on grade levels 15 to 17. We have come down from about 66% raise, but we cannot agree on what the government is pushing to us. The government should expect our action at any time if nothing is done. End of quote. Gentlemen, I mean, it saddens my heart that we're still talking about strike action over minimum wage again. I thought this was a done deal, as it were, since the president already assented to it. But how do you feel about this? Let's start with you, Prince Chilaka.
I don't want to talk about this. The reason why I don't want to talk about this is that we don't have labor. And I remember on one of the shows here, I said that 30,000 naira for minimum wage is a no-no for me. I also call that it is time we sit down and know how much our senators are earning, how much our governors are earning, how much the presidency is earning. And I believe that this whole thing about minimum wage will be taken care of when Nigerians begin to earn per hour daily pay. More
like a living wage. All right, great.
I think, as my colleague has said, the challenge here is not that we don't even have enough. Yeah, because to describe what is enough for a nation is the standard by which you define your own values in terms of earning and purchasing power parity. Now, looking at that, you see that if you aggregate what the senators, the governors, the president, and all those earn, and the pace of the office, you find that we have more than enough. For example, I also would want to disagree with those who think that the senior civil service, their pay also should be raised. I think what we are dealing with here now are the lower cadre staff or civil servants who need this more than the rest of us in Nigeria. Because in Abuja, I see all these level 15, level 17 officers going around with SUVs. Where they live and where they work is about 5 minutes drive. And when you look at the current expenditure per annum, you know that we don't have any reason crying for not enough money to go around. Like the president of Rwanda once said, when they were trying to solve the problem of corruption, they looked at, if we don't have enough and we open the box, everyone knows that we don't have enough, we share, so that whatever we have can go around. Everybody will know that we all sharing equal. To an extent, the policeman on the road, the military man, the teacher in the classroom, he will be happy knowing that while he's taking little, somebody somewhere is not taking so much. So we need to bridge the gap between those, especially those who are earning from government. If you want to, there's certain kind of dream you should have about having money that should, if you have such vision, such ambition, you should not be in government. So these are the things we need to do. We need to redenominate the earning quotient of people. That is how we should be able to solve this problem. But going forward, the president and those in government should be able to solve this, because we thought we have agreed on some of this
amount already. All right, let me bring Mazi Obiora into the discussion. And while you are commenting, also it looks like there might be a different kind of wage for federal workers and a different wage for state workers, you know, so we have double wage, as it were. Is this even healthy?
You see, thank you very much. Much as I don't believe in what Prince said that he will not talk about, I will talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll talk about the evil and the wickedness in the house, in the land. We'll talk about, you mentioned living wage. In some other platforms, I've said we are not talking about, we should not talk about minimum wage, we should talk about living wage.
All right, Mazi, let me just cut you off there. Sorry, I apologize. We have to go for a commercial break. I'm getting signals. All right, we'll take this commercial break quickly. We'll come back.
Activate your life, be who you want to be. Time to get active. Yes, the time is now.
Start an active life with the power of vegetables and fruits. Chivita Active. Be active. Do more.
Well, thanks for joining us again. All right, back to you, Mazio.
Yeah, like I was saying, in 1975 when I started work, how much was my salary? 96 naira. And it went a long way to take care of my immediate needs. I was able to save, and by 1980,
96 naira?
Yes, 96
Wow.
naira. That was the minimum wage for a young school living certificate.
Okay.
Then from there, it graduated to 120 something, blah, 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 and things like that. Now, today, when you talk about minimum wage, what is minimum and what is living? Living means something that you can dwell with you, something that can take you to the next end of the month.
Paycheck,
but
yes.
today, even though 300,000 will not be enough, unfortunately, even this minimum wage you are talking about, how many states are paying up to now? And are they paying as attained due? The answer is no. Then look at our politicians. We were talking before we came on air. What is happening in the states? Some of these politicians, they take their salary even before the civil servant. So we should talk about it. We don't have labor. The labor you are talking about, who is the Minister of Labor? A medical doctor. It's unfortunate. You need to bring somebody who knows the value of workers, who appreciate the suffering of the workers. But unfortunately, what we see politicians taking from other side, bring other side to cover the wickedness in the land. We should talk about it. And the insincerity, this minimum wage was signed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in April. And up till now, they are dragging their feet in implementation. The question I want to ask is this: why has it taken so long for the implementation? Not only the civil, what about the private sectors? Do you know that there are some private sectors that are paying 15,000 naira? Do you know that some even schools that are paying 10,000 naira to their teachers? So we are living in a situation that wickedness has taken the place of righteousness, and we need to tell the truth that we need to sit down and talk about how to move this stuff forward.
And in addition to that, there is something important. Why do we every year after year begin to agitate for salary increment? There are fundamental issues that have become the reasons for which every now and then we have to agitate for salary increment. Solving those issues are key to sustainable economic development of our society, because the inflationary rates, lack of productivity, even of the civil service, is also key. We need to address all of them pari passu, because look at 75% of our annual budget is expended literally on less than 5 million people, and we don't get result. Nigeria is not getting result. For if we have to budget 7-8 trillion and we spend close to about 6 trillion on recurrent expenditure, which is managed by civil servants, and these people are less than 10 million people in a country of 200 million people, there is something fundamentally wrong. Addressing those issues will be problem, because why do we all struggle for increment? We need light, we need road, we need hospitals, we need schools, so that when these things are taken care of, there will be less pressure on salary increment. Let's increase salary. It's because we have to go and solve these things individually. So having a corporate prosperity.
Sorry. I want to say, let me tell you one.
Go ahead.
You talked about different impairments of salaries.
Yeah.
The federal
and the state.
Do they have different markets? Please, can you answer?
I get that. That's why I asked the question. They don't
have a separate market.
Yeah.
All of us go to the market and we buy the same commodities. You cannot say, your own is from federal, you are from Federal Minister of blah 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 blah, and the price is from this. So this is your own price.
But
something from the filling station.
But the cost of living is not the same. For example, someone in Abia and Lagos, their cost of living is not the same.
What I was trying to correct is that I said I didn't want to talk about it, and I'll tell you why.
Because you're not happy.
Because I'm not happy. Before now, some state governors who lost the election, some who are still in power, have been owing civil servants 16 months, 18 months, 10 months. What did Labour do? What did Labour do? So why do people put their trust and hope in an organization that has no
The same people went out to vote for them.
So what are we talking about?
The same people went out.
So as far as I'm concerned,
Everyone
anybody
went ahead to vote for them.
All right, gentlemen, let's not dwell too much on this. It's not our main topic for the day. I know how we all feel about this, but 2 weeks ultimatum is what the Trade Union Congress is giving to President Muhammadu Buhari's administration to correct this wrong. Okay, still to come on the buzz today. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo writes President Muhammadu Buhari another letter. This time, he says if insecurity is not checked, it might lead to full-blown war. When we return from the break, but first, let's go and see this funny video of the day. This bus conductor having a proper meal, whether it's breakfast or lunch, on top of a bus. We'll be right back.
You know, say, connect to me. I want to join now. Our breakfast was. So get it, baby. Who get it? Listen.
Femi Salami from Ikorodu is commenting, and he says insincerity of government in most cases is now a culture. Workers should be paid minimum wage as agreed by the government. Thank you, Femi, for that input. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has written yet another letter to President Muhammadu Buhari. In the letter, Obasanjo advised the president to immediately address the increasing cases of insecurity in Nigeria to prevent it from escalating into a full-blown war. In another letter to President Buhari on Monday, Obasanjo called on the president to take decisive action to prevent the situation from getting worse. The letter reads in part, I am very much worried and afraid that we are on the precipice and dangerously reaching a tipping point where it may no longer be possible to hold danger at bay. Without being immodest, as a Nigerian who still bears the scar of the Nigerian civil war on my body, and with a son who bears the scar of fighting Boko Haram on his body, you can understand, I hope, why I am so concerned. When people are desperate and feel that they cannot have confidence in the ability of government to provide security for their lives and properties, they will take recourse to anything and everything that can guarantee their security individually and collectively. It's quite a very long letter. It's online for those who might want to read the entire letter, but I'll just stop it here. But anyways, the former Information Minister, Lai Mohammed, has described the letter as a mere distraction. All right, gentlemen, this is like the third or the fourth letter coming from Obasanjo to Buhari, you know, in the space of about a year. But this letter, I would say, if you read the entire content of it, is more detailed than the previous one and more direct, if you know what I mean, talking about consequences for actions or inactions of the government of the day. I know you've read this letter, President.
No, yes, I would say that. Let me start by congratulating the former president for telling the truth when it should be told. A few weeks back, I remember the Oba of Benin called the Inege and told them to begin to recruit some form of vigilante. That because, in his own words, he said, and I quote, that herdsmen, bandits, have taken over the forest along that axis, and they're causing mayhem and all of that. And when I saw that, I was really disturbed, and I said to myself, if the Oba of Benin is saying this and is now, you know, empowering the Inegi to begin to arrange for vigilante, what is our security architecture doing? I also remember that I've said severally that the whole killings going on in the country, which everybody is overlooking, until it affects somebody close to power, something will not be done. You, as we all sit here, we know how many people have lost their lives on that particular axis, based on the activities of these so-called bandits, headsmen, and call them whatever you want to call them. But if you look at from Asaba to Imo State to Abia State, you have more than 50 police checkpoints. What are they doing? What are they doing? So, Mr. President, I'll tell you this: if Nigerians, if all your so-called advisors are not telling you the truth, what Obasanjo has said to you is the clear truth.
Okay.
Take it with an open mind.
Okay.
Take steps to ensure that the security of lives and property of Nigerians become the utmost thing on
becomes a priority. All right, great. Miyetti Allah has said that Obasanjo should be arrested for this letter. What do you think?
Well, it's unfortunate that now groups like Miyetti Allah have become so vociferous in the affairs of Nigeria. That is very unfortunate. But having said that, it's also important to say that Obasanjo represents something in Nigeria. As former head of state, military head, and then president of Nigeria for 2 terms, he knows the depths of Nigeria, and he represents the wisdom that should be behind governance. But what I think many people who have challenged Obasanjo have issue with, in communication, we call it channel. Channel, you know, as a communicator, with you're taught that your channel of communication, if not properly laced, could constitute noise. So sometimes Obasanjo's channel, you know, contradicts, you know, or creates noise. Therefore, people, you bring the message, in the midst of the message, there's a conflict that you have to deal with. You know, you are not looking for the meat of the message. Otherwise, Obasanjo's advice should be heeded to, because as somebody who have governed Nigeria for a period of 8 years, was a former military president, he knows a lot more, and he has connection to some international organizations from which certain information that are not available to us can get to him. But sometimes, because of the way and manner Obasanjo acts towards those in government, people see him as being in conflict or being in opposition to those in government
For political reasons.
Okay. So the noise sometimes he creates now takes away from the message. Now, why should someone like Obasanjo not be able to pick his phone and call President Buhari directly? How? And I mean, being a former president, there is a communication between him and the president. There's a hotline that exists between them. You can as well dispatch your courier service to Mr. President to detail all this, but bringing it to the public view makes it more political. This is where people have issues. I don't think that anybody can deny the fact that Nigeria is tipping towards a dangerous end.
Can I come from the other side?
You understand? Yeah.
If we are to go by what you have said, channeling the message directly to the president.
Yes.
How about in cases where former leaders, former president, former head of state have been accused of being silent on salient issues affecting the nation? Because if you channel those kind of messages directly to the president, the public is unaware that you are doing something. Do you get what I'm saying?
That means when you are what Obasanjo then is trying to gain his public attention. Because at the level of that level of leadership, you are not looking for public attention. You have an important duty towards a responsibility. There's what they call expected role performance. The grade is differs. For someone who wants to be known so that he can become president tomorrow, he might be acting in that class. But for someone who have governed Nigeria, who has become an elder statesman, somebody who sits in the what they call state council, and then who knows the Mr. President, he doesn't want to bother about what interest is beyond those.
I get that.
It should be about how do you get this message passed that you get the result intended.
Okay.
Now you create a distraction.
Okay.
It means we are now dragging your popularity with the message. So which of them are we to achieve here?
I want to hear your input on this. Plus, Every time this administration comes out and they reel out to the Nigerian populace how much is being spent and being done on securing the nation, the tone of Obasanjo's letter, suggests that the security of this nation is being handled with kid's gloves by this administration. Do you think something further needs to be done?
Any right-thinking person will support the letter the former president has written.
Okay.
When you talk to the ears and the ears refuse to hear, when you come to cut off the head, will the ears remain alone? No. Now, my father used to tell me, he said, when he calls you inside his bedroom by 3 a.m. and talk to you, advise to you on the ills and wrongs you have been doing, I refuse to change. When next he will talk to you to be in the public, and that is what has happened. Now, leave the messenger.
Thank you.
Take the message.
At the message. We talked about how much have you spent by the government in terms of securing the nation. My question is, are they such money, are they being applied rightly? What about, is it $1 billion US dollars that was, was not appropriated, but it was done like that? What about the jets that were imported? Have you seen the jets? And he spent it without appropriation. And you are not talking about this. Are you saving the country? Is the country united? What about the insecurity? We talked about Ruga the other day, and we said Ruga is not our problem now. Our wives and children and girls cannot go to the farm. Insecurity all over the places. You look at yourself. Your security within yourselves is, they are always one-sided. One-sided, appointment one-sided. And these are the things Obasanjo is pointing at. You don't want to listen. If you like, call him names. If you don't like, call him names. If you don't like, leave. But he has communicated. Look, let me tell you one thing. When communication is effective, when it is properly communicated, right? Now, when he has called him, who knows whether he has called him privately and refuses to hear. Our president appears to be, I don't know if I say now, when say Mazi don't come.
Please do not say.
Whether he's hearing or not hearing, if he is hearing, won't he listen to this? And look at the former minister of information. I beg, let him go and see that he has not been reappointed. If there's anybody that needed to have, not to come back, that man, because when you feed people lies, people will begin to hate you. But when you tell one lies, you need another 10 of lies to cover it. And that is what is happening. The amount so spent on security, we have not seen it being translated to actually. It's
not justified.
It's not justified.
Okay.
Let me help you. Let me help you. I'm going to say something. I'm going to read the first few lines of his letter. And I quote. He says, I am constrained to write to you this open letter. I decided to make it an open letter because the issue is very worthy and must be greatly worrisome to all concerned, Nigerians, and that means all right-thinking Nigerians and those resident in Nigeria. You see, anybody who comes out to talk about this letter not being properly communicated, it's not being sincere.
No, let me say
it's not being sincere.
I would have thought you would have read that. I have tried talking to you on phone.
No.
Hold on, bro.
We're not communicating.
Hold on, bro. I thought what you were going to call my attention to is that maybe Obasanjo started by saying, I've spoken with you on phone. I've written to you privately before. Now I'm constrained to write in public. Even the analogy, Mazi, you gave. Your father will have to call you first at midnight by 3 a.m. To advise you in the secret. Those procedures shows that you need to honor a man before you can offer him a
but
public.
Great Jonathan,
Hold on. Are you even in doubt in that analogy? I've not said that Obasanjo did the wrong thing. Let's get it right. Even between you and I, even in your home, your brothers, your elder brothers, your father, sometimes as a man, you will respect them more when they call you behind and advise you.
Right,
and whereby you don't take it, then you want to. So,
before you ask the question, let me make an input. Don't forget that this man we're talking about, this former president Obasanjo, is a letter writer. It's not a new thing. We know that. So why are we spending so much energy on how
that is what we are saying.
No. What we are saying is that what is in the message of the letter? That is what
See,
we want.
it is now a case of melodrama because we are no longer seeing from what it should be. It is now that he's a letter writer, he's a postmaster general. So we keep taking away from the
Have you read this letter?
Yes, I did.
All right, let's take away the fact. Everything you have mentioned, it should have communicated privately and all of that. The content of this letter, does this speak of what is going on in Nigeria?
Very seriously, and I was going to mention that even before my brother, made some observations. Number one, the security situation in Nigeria is actually alarming. Number two, it is obvious that the security architecture in Nigeria is no longer effective for the new challenges in view.
Okay.
Number three, it appears we are investing in the wrong places. We are not channeling resources at the right point. So we keep going around in circle and we're not getting results because this whole thing is snowballing into something we appear not to be able to handle. Number one, we are dealing with foreign invaders. Whether you call them Fulani herdsmen or not, Mr. President have rightly noted before that some of these people are from the Sahel, from Libya and the rest. That we have Fulanis here should not make us misunderstand the fact that there are Fulanis from other countries. The indigenous Fulanis in Nigeria don't have problem with indigenous Hausa, Igbo and Yoruba because we all live together. But the borders are porous. That is number one thing that we have not dealt with. The borders of Nigeria is porous. And in modern world, you don't have a country who have more than up to 1,800 or 1,000 and something, and it's an entry point that are not manned by security agencies and any immigration officers. That is the number one problem Nigeria must solve.
Okay.
Using technology. Then number two, these ones that have already entered, that are now looking for space, they are contending with the existing people, must be rooted out properly, structurally. Then number three, we must encourage community policing. I don't care what anybody says, because I don't think somebody from Zamfara can manage their state very properly. You wear your uniform, going around Umuahia, putting roadblocks, collecting money from morning to evening, but at night you go back to your barracks and you don't care what happens at night. That is not security. People within their communities understand the forest zones, they understand the farm routes. They should be able to marshal community police to be able to handle that. If you don't want to say state police, at least let's start with police, community police. Then, using technology, satellite and aerial mapping, you should be able to see this settlement. All of these bandits who come out on the road, keep people go back. There, you can find them through satellite images. And if you have expended $1 billion on doing that, we would have known, would have had complete this forensic.
All right.
This of image of
let's work with time. Great. Thank you so much for your submission. Now, Mazi Obiora, let me ask. Obasanjo's letter talks about when people get desperate, then they begin to look for individual means to secure their lives and their property. A situation, if not guarded, might lead to, I quote him, pogrom, or the Rwanda type of genocide. Do you think Nigerians have gotten to that level of desperation?
We are gradually getting to that place. We are gradually. Obasanjo said war is looming. And it calls for concern. Desperation in anything is a dangerous and deadly thing. When you are desperate in getting some, most of them were desperate and are still desperate to be where they are and where they have been there. And that's why you see people killed. I asked him on the other forum, said, who among them from number 1 to number 0, who among them can swear with Bible that they got where they are through legal means?
Or based on merit?
On merit. None. So some of these people, he talked about the porous nature of our borders. Whose fault? Is it his fault? Is it my fault? What are the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Army Staff, confirmed that even the officers, military officers, it appears that they've compromised in the security situation. You talked about from here to Abia State or from here to nowhere. The vice president said that they are now going to bring out the military to the checkpoint. Abi? Then my question is, the military have been there from Benin to Umbahia, from Benin to Nuya. How many checkpoints being manned by the military? What are they doing? They are there causing unnecessary hold up, causing unnecessary hardship, extorting money. They are from the east. They can confirm or misquote me. So the issue here we are talking about is desperation leads to problem, anarchy. And when you cannot protect your people, people will now decide to take laws into their hand, and we end in anarchy.
Okay.
That's the issue.
Okay. All right. Quickly.
Well,
Please, Chilaka.
I'm going to take up from where Jonathan stopped.
Okay.
It said something about a porous border, which has allowed a lot of people who are not really Nigerians to become part of
Even in
Nigeria.
Lagos,
This is where I really don't understand this government. Mr. President has come out to say that, yes, these people are not Nigerians. Well, it's not a denial. And yet you want to create Ruga for them. I mean, is it that we're not thinking straight anymore in this country? You're looking at people you call invaders. They're outsiders. And you think that the best way to accommodate them is to create hamlets, colonies, for them to stay amongst the people. What are we trying to do? Don't we realize that our big brotherness in this world has ended? It used to be called the giant of Africa. We're no longer giants, we're termites right now.
How can you be giant when you
Nigerians are
the
suffering.
headquarters of poverty?
Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are hungry.
You call yourself giant. You are
There
the
is
headquarters
no
of this.
electricity. All the roads are bad. The health sector is zero. These are things government should be more interested in.
Okay.
And I want to support great. I believe in state police. If they can't start with it, let us start with community police. We need to go back
4 years ago.
10 seconds, sir.
4 years ago, I was in the east, and there was a phone call from, one of the radio stations. I mentioned 4 years ago, I mentioned that much as I support the state police, but I fear the misabuse. And before you know it, by 4 p.m., they quoted me out of context that Mazi supported state police. What we are saying is this: you mentioned community policing, you mentioned also state policing. We need these two. Let you work hand in hand, because you cannot know my backyard.
So that the Nigerian army and police can be used to man the borders, man the highways.
The military are not trained.
Locally.
Yes,
Okay.
we're still crying of insecurity. We still see police chasing Okada around in town, searching vehicles in your particulars. Where there is heightened need for police presence on the highways.
Okay.
You understand? So we need to have those. Like last man should be able to handle traffic issues in Lagos. Why should the Nigerian government pay for police to come and handle traffic in Abia State? Those are the misapplied resources that we are talking about.
There's a systematic failure in Nigeria now.
Where the military should be on the highways, on the borders, making sure that territorial integrity, you are applying them in different places. You want to use them as task force to go and be chasing Danfo in Lagos. Those are the problems.
Okay. All right. I wish we had more time to deliberate on this. I mean, insecurity in Nigeria is a burning issue. Is one thing the government has to constantly look at. Another issue that the government of the day should be looking at is Nigeria's escalating debt profile. President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has raised alarm over Nigeria's ever-escalating debt profile. According to him, Nigeria is currently using 50% of its revenue to service its debts, compared to the average of 17% for other African countries. This is just part of an economic malaise which has consigned millions of Nigerians to multi-dimensional poverty, even as a few favored ones continue to enjoy the nation's wealth. Now, going by the frightening figures that were recently released by the Debt Management Office, the total debt stock as at the 31st of March this year stood at a humongous 24.047 trillion naira. That was as at March this year, while that of the federal government stood at 17.086 trillion, and that of the state, including the Federal Capital Territory, amounted to in excess of 7 trillion naira. This is where we are. This is our reality as a country. is this sustainable? How do we begin to pay back this debt? Who is going to pay back this debt? This is the question we're asking.
You're asking a good question. Who is going to pay back? Generations yet unborn. They're going to pay it back. But the question I want to ask, which I'm going to throw also to those in government, is all the money EFCC has been claiming to have recovered, what has been happening to it? What is it being used for? This government was brought in with the intention of fighting corruption. Those who have embezzled money in this country, those who have stolen our collective wealth for themselves, what is happening to them? Why is everybody keeping quiet? Why do Nigeria has turned into a country where we all shout, we clap our hands for people who enrich themselves in funny ways. We no longer look at integrity. Everybody in Nigeria wants to be rich overnight. Values have disappeared. So these are the problems. The churches are no longer preaching about morality. So it's a vicious circle. So if we are owing this kind of money, the government should please, I beg President Buhari, publish the names of people who have stolen our collective wealth. If he cannot go after them, let the people go after them.
Okay, great. Let me ask another question. With all of this monies that's been borrowed, that we're owing, plus all of the monthly allocations and all the bailouts, state governors cannot pay salaries. Power is epileptic, and then there's a deficit in critical infrastructure. We all know that. I mean, no roads, no good hospitals, no nothing. What is being done with this money? How do we justify all of this money?
That is an honest question to ask, because right now there is a shadow of darkness cast over the nation. Whilst you're talking about power, we have privatized it. Right now, people don't supply electricity, charges people every month. Private people stealing from Nigerians. Governors stealing from Nigerians. Contractors stealing from Nigerians. So in dealing with this, I think number one thing is that we need to have a clear head as a nation. I want to give an example. It's a miniature example, but from which we can learn a lesson. When Peter Obi became the governor of Anambra State, after all the brouhaha, months of unpaid salaries, pensions, arrears and gratuities, abandoned infrastructure, insecurity problem, and all the political rascality going in Anambra, the calmness of Peter Obi gave him the privilege to sit down and dissect everything. Peter Obi paid up all this backlog of salaries and everything. Peter Obi was able to put security in place, built infrastructure in Anambra, left Anambra without any debt, governed 8 years without borrowing. Number one thing a nation needs to do is like an individual. Nigeria is a nation that is living above its means to start with. I don't see the reason why certain elements in Nigerian government should be driving cars worth 300 million, 50 million, and all of those things. We are joking. We are lying. We are lying to ourselves. Because if we are serious about solving our problem, number one to ask is that, when did we borrow? Why did we borrow? Who borrowed? If you are borrowed to invest in infrastructure, where are those infrastructure? If they are not there, get these people arrested. The rest of the story. And I want to say this vehemently on this platform. Mr. President and those who work with Mr. President, on this point I cannot make excuse for government, because society rise and fall on the altar of leadership. If you do a forensic audit of all the debt cumulatively, whether it's in the last 20 or 30 years, find out those who were responsible. As of the time they borrowed the money, what was the money borrowed for? And if the money is borrowed for, you say you borrowed it for rail construction, were they built? No. If you borrowed it for power and they were not built, get these people arrested. And we Nigerians should also be careful, because sometimes after we do all this crime, we go behind and support this element who have been instrumental to bankrupting this nation, because they are from our tribe, because they are from our religion, because we know them, because they are from our political party. And after doing all this crime, going to church on Sunday and mosque on Friday to pray to God, we come back to support evil characters in this nation. And God is looking at us. And God is looking at us like you are deceiving yourself. The hypocrisy is too much. In both from president, governors, look at these governors. They can't pay salaries, but some of them can charter private jet from their state to Abuja, 60 million almost every day. Using the same P2B, this is a governor who travels on economic class. Throughout his 8 years in government, never chartered a plane any day. And yet he became the best. Left $75 million in state coffers. Left investment for the state. Did not collect any debt. Even if nothing at all, he has set the state all this crisis.
So great. From your analysis of Peter Obi's administration, it shows that we can do something about this. All right, because of our time, let's hear from Mazi Obiora.
Just give an example of Peter Obi. Now, what about the other governors? You talk about the debt increase and whatever. What do we produce? We produce nothing except oil. That's what we export. But there are other things. But let me ask a question. The VAT issue, how much do they generate in a year? What do they pay into? The NNPC, the customs, the other public service that are bringing in money to the federal government coffers. Why do we have to be borrowing? The state governors, they borrow to finance their elections. And the people on the street, the masses, join them in eating it. That was during the election. I called the attention of one lady. Why did you say they went for campaign and they were giving black? I said, you know, you have mortgaged your future because of a cup of rice and 500 naira. These governors borrowed money to finance their electionary campaign and they are paying back. And some of them are wicked acts. Then he talked about moral. Nigeria has lost the moral value in the families. Families have done wrong. Now, in those who were growing up, our fathers, our parents will teach you, this money does not belong to you. It is somebody's own. Something that does not belong to you is not your own. Don't touch it. But today, government money is people's money. Everybody goes there, let me go and take my national cake and things like that. That is what we are seeing today. You borrow for investment. But in Nigeria, we steal. We steal the money so borrowed. And some of these monies, the previous administration borrowed. The present administration is borrowing and borrowing. Our children, not my grandchildren, because my grandchildren may not, our great-grandchildren, yet unborn, will be the people to pay for it. May God help us.
Like I said, we must, number one, tell ourselves the truth. Nigeria is living above our means. 11 jets on the presidential convoy.
For what?
Governors who travel by, there are things we need to give fiat. We need to use presidential order to stop governors from chartering.
The president, when he came in, he said he will not be able to sustain the fleet of jets in his whatever. Am I
absolving him? I've already told you that these are the fundamentals. So even if Mr. President or anybody is complaining,
let all of them go by the way.
Why should any civil servant in this country be driving car 50 million?
Car
20 million.
Let them, all of them go by the road. The road they ask us to go. From here to Islam. Let's talk about 8 hours.
In 2018, I took time to go through the national budget when it was first uploaded. I cried for this country. The same departments in government where you have seen contract for supply of computer 300 million. Last year you see it repeated itself. This time even the price is inflated this time around. These civil servants come back with the same things inside the budget and inflate them every year. We say this budget increment, the current expenditure 75, and you ask yourself less than 5 million people spending 75% of national resources in a country of 200 million people. We are very mad.
I think what I would say is this. Mr. President,
10 seconds, please.
Mr. President has a duty to do to Nigerians.
If you have
what he needs to do first of all is we need to change our electoral system. So long as we have an electoral system where people would steal money to get to power, because they believe that when they get to power, there is more money to be stolen. That's the problem.
Okay.
We need to change that perspective.
Okay.
We need to urgently.
And also, not when you.
10 seconds, Mazi.
And also, not when you cross-carpeted to a beloved party, you become a saint. Even when you have stolen, Even when you say your sins are forgiven, I only know one person who has the power to forgive sins.
Okay, great. In 10 seconds.
Well, in 10 seconds, the debt issue is alarming.
Wow, it
Mr.
is
President,
alarming.
governors, senators, all of them should bridle and they should mellow their appetite. The way we spend in this country, Nigeria have not achieved such wealth deposition to be able to spend such an amount on ourselves. Then number two, we should probe, we should prosecute, we should make sure that our monies are recovered and going forward, and we should use them for what they actually budgeted.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. If you make governance unattractive, I keep saying it. The moment we make governance unattractive, a lot of people will not go into politics. People go into politics in this country because now it has become the only sure way to become a millionaire.
All right, so sanitizing the polity. Now, while we're discussing Nigeria's debt profile, which currently stands at about 24 trillion naira, it's a matter of great concern for us as Nigerians, because if we're not careful, our children, our grandchildren are the ones who are going to be made to pay back this debt. And remember, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria still stands at almost 70%. So a lot of our children are even jobless. So what that means is, in the future, if we're not careful, our children might become slaves and beggars in their own country to creditor nations. Thank you so very much, Prince Chilaka. Thank you, great Imo Jonathan. Thank you, Mazi Obiora. Thank you for coming through. Thank you, viewers. All the messages are just coming in now. I think the weather affected network, as usual. Thank you indeed for being a part of the show. We'll be back tomorrow, same time. Do join us again. Enjoy your day.